Okay, so it is 9:02 on Monday, December 7th, and we're going to go ahead and call the Executive Cabinet meeting for the Board of County Commissioners to order. Let the record reflect that we have all three commissioners present. And do we have Ms. Griddle on the line, or?
Yeah.
Okay. We got Carrie Webley, and I don't have, oh, there you are, Carrie. So first item of business is CARES Act funding and stuff. So the floor is yours, dear.
Good morning.
Morning.
Is Rick on the line?
No, you're the only one.
I'm the only one so far.
Are you looking? Are you looking for Rick from WSU?
Yes.
No, I don't see him.
And Carrie, he also let me know that Chancellor was going to be joining us
Oh, the
this morning.
Chancellor. The wall.
So do you want to go ahead and give us the background on this while we're waiting for them to join us?
Sure, I'll be happy to.
Thank you.
I received WSU's proposal last week. I sent it out to all of you. There's various categories. I don't know, Gina, if you can bring it up on the screen or not. There's various categories that they have put in. I've reviewed all of the categories and the expenses, and they are within the CARES Act requirements. The first one were expenses that they had incurred due to medical and protective supplies to the amount of $58,982. Then they put in a request for $40,000 for Spokane campus testing of the School of Nursing. That was in the amount of $40,000. There was also an additional amount of $129,000 that were for the disinfecting janitorial services, as we previously have addressed in other of our higher ed institutions, and that amount was $129,000. And then they supplied technical assistance through their community public health response by deploying WSU Spokane Range Health Mobile Unit to assist the COVID response out in Airway Heights. And that amount was $27,258. So their total request for CARES funding is $255,622.
Okay, any questions for Carrie? I can't see Mary on the screen. Okay.
No, I don't have any questions.
Thank you. Okay, so then the chair's open to motion.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve and authorize the expenditure of CARES dollars up to the amount of $255,622 to cover the costs for WSU as presented by Carrie Griddle.
I will second the motion.
Okay, you've got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Let the record reflect the motion passed unanimously. Thank you.
Thanks, Carrie.
So do you have any other requests, Carrie, or is that it?
That's it for today. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you. All right, so then that takes us to
Mr. Burgess.
Mr. Burgess. See you on the line here.
I am. Good morning, commissioners.
Morning, the floor is yours, sir.
So we're just to the point where I think we need to finalize things on agenda. We've got a couple outstanding issues. This isn't a new document. You've seen everything here. There was just two notes that we needed to fill in, and then there was a letter too that my colleague from the city of Spokane Valley prepared about the fairgrounds project, and for your perusal, and then agreement to sign, and then that letter would then be distributed. So those are the two things. I think that the blanks on the agenda were, there was a road project, Commissioner French, I think some specifics we needed, and then we were going to get a couple notes on the small arms range, but that was it. At that point, then I think you just need to approve this, and then take a look at that letter and see if we agree with that, and then go from there.
I think the small arms range one was finished as far as the language from,
Okay.
unless they have changes, but I got the information that we were looking for.
Perfect.
And what do you need more on the request out at Hayford Geiger Road 902 intersection? We've got a description and a cost there.
Yeah, we got that taken care of too, Mike.
Oh, okay. Well, then, yeah, then as far as I know, then we're good to go. As far as that document, if you as a commission agree that this reflects the things that we've talked about over the last couple months, and then we'll go from there as far as requesting a time to try to meet with some of the legislators about this.
Okay. Any questions for Mike? So I was on the MRSC board last Friday, and the lobbyist for MRSC, Justin, was giving us an update on what he thought was going to happen with regard to initiatives from the legislature. Thought that there was going to be a transportation package, but didn't see if there was enough wheels underneath that one to carry it through. But there's also a lot of conversation about a capital budget, and probably a pretty significant capital budget as a stimulus package and stuff. What are you hearing?
I'd agree with that whole premise. I mean, it's part of the reason why I thought we should make some, make a larger amount of capital requests than we have in years past, just given that I did believe that the legislature will view it as a jobs package. Agreed to on the premise for transportation. Though transportation is a revenue generator as well in terms of job growth, tax revenues, and things like that. The complexities of trying to do a transportation revenue package, those generally take 2 to 3 sessions to pass once they start talking about it. And they really haven't talked about it in earnest, in my opinion, over the last couple of years. I mean, I think this year would have been the beginning of a real dialogue, especially with things like, the West Seattle Bridge issue, I think is jump-starting things for legislators in the Puget Sound region. So I think that's complicated, given the fact that the session is going to be remote, and the Senate and House both have done a handful of committee hearings over the last week or so. I don't know if you remember, but they've done legislative committee days in years past. We just got through those. And needless to say, the hearing process was really difficult, even to watch, and this, keep in mind too, this wasn't even public testimony. This was just staff updates and briefings. And when I say it was difficult to watch, no one did anything wrong. It's just glitchy and, don't unmute. And this is probably preaching to the choir. I know you all have been dealing with this since March, I think, with people trying to talk with you all and how awkward it is, and getting anything of complexity done is difficult. So I think things will be severely limited, but yes, Commissioner, capital budget for sure, operating budget for sure. I mean, they have to do those things. They're not going to not do them. And then the other is, they will still do a transportation budget, but whether it becomes a new revenue package or not is a separate question. But the reason to always have your transportation projects listed is, well, if they do it, we want to make sure we've got our stuff in the queue. So that's the rationale there.
Yeah, you're saying that in the Senate, evidently the chair and vice chair are both putting together their own separate transportation packages. So, they can't even get the leadership to align, much less the rest of the committee. And Fine is kind of pushing a sloppy snowball uphill from his standpoint.
Yeah, and the chairs over the years. Last year, you might remember Senator Hobbs put something forward, and those was centered around, it intertwines with the carbon tax and how that all fits together. He'd like to see a carve out of carbon revenue go towards transportation projects. And then caught up amongst this too is the low carbon fuel standard issue, that LCFS, and how all that stuff fits together. It's not abnormal for chairs to throw revenue packages out there, or usually they're just project lists to begin with to try to get legislative buy-in. They've thrown them out over the years, but again, nothing's coalesced around a real, what I call a legitimate effort. That's why I say it takes years generally for these things to come together. And I don't feel like we've been at the starting point of when it gets real serious, if that makes sense. This other stuff has been kind of thrown out there, but I haven't gotten the sense that it's real serious yet. And given the remote nature of session, I think it's going to make that only more difficult to do.
Okay.
So I'd agree with everything you've said. I mean, the things you're hearing would echo what I've heard too.
So the other thing on the local level is evidently one of our representatives is going to try and float a bill to change the composition of health district boards. Is that getting any traction on the other side of the state or not?
So I'm certainly aware of the issue, Commissioner. I know that your association staff, and when I say that, I mean the folks with WASAC and the Public Health Association with SALFO, are talking with that legislator. All I can tell you is I've seen anecdotal information out there in media and social media about the issue. I do know that the state associations will have concerns about the governance part of this. You know, the issue aside of what's happening in Spokane, there's some governance issues associated with making some of these changes that I don't know that will be appealing to other areas of the state. And just, I say that especially too, based on my experience sitting in legislative steering committee rooms with you and your colleagues. When the legislature does start to get into local governance and boards and who does or does not have fiduciary responsibilities, that certainly gets complicated. I have not seen the legislation yet, and I know that there will be discussions of it. In all likelihood, you could make the argument that this fits under the desire of legislators to kind of narrow the scope of issues they want to talk about this year, and COVID response being one of them. So right, wrong, or indifferent, I think that an issue like this would have an audience and some sympathetic ears to listen to. But again, when you get to the complexities of trying to change things like this, having a remote session, I think, is a barrier to that and makes it difficult. I hope that's an answer, non-answer.
Yeah, no, you did a great job of dancing. No, I'm
Thank you,
just,
sir.
any other questions for Mike on any other topic?
I was just gonna, with everything being virtual and remote, has there been any discussion about how they're gonna prioritize public testimony? I mean, are you gonna have to sign up days in advance? Are you gonna have to sign, is it 24 hours? An
Good
hour?
question, Commissioner. So interestingly, over the last week, and then even this morning, I was reading just a couple emails with links to how you do remote testimony. And honestly, they just take you to the legislature's current remote testimony page. So there's really nothing there. I did see a notice that you will be able to sign up a week in advance for hearings, but then you'd have to be signed up 24 hours in advance. So if that makes sense, you'd have this, I guess, 6-day window to sign up for a hearing. I haven't seen anything formal yet, and because I don't quite know yet how that's all going to fit together. But yes, there will be remote testimony. There's going to have to be, and so then it becomes the question of how does the legislature decide what they're even going to hear, because the hearing process is the gateway, right? If you schedule a bill that's got any controversy to it, you all schedule hearings on issues, and you know which ones will bring the public out. And that's not a pejorative. It's just the reality of a lot of people have interest in certain things. And so how's that all going to work? The House majority did send out a document, a kind of a directive to their membership. I don't want to call it a directive, or a document. It was some guidelines for if you're going to do bills. It specifically said limit the amount of legislation you introduce as a legislator. Then keep in mind, this is just a majority. It doesn't govern any other caucus, and frankly, it doesn't govern them. It's not binding. It's just a suggestion. But limit the amount of bills you introduce, and then look at it through a lens of equity, COVID, and then fiscal. There was a fourth, but in essence, it was those three buckets. And then if it's something that can wait until next year, just wait. So again,
Okay.
the fact that you're going to do remote testimony will ration the amount of legislation down. And I think what we're going to see is a slow week to 10 day, 2-3 week rollout in January of how exactly hearings are going to work. And then we'll go from there.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Just one other observation. I think the hardest part for them this year in Olympia is going to be not being able to caucus. You know, because when the majority gets in a room, that's when the stuff happens, and that's when the discussions really happen in a candid way. And you know how that goes. And I don't know how you do that, not being in a room with someone, reading their body language and all those things that are associated with a group of people trying to come to an agreement. So anyway, that's my editorial comment.
Okay, Mary?
So Mike, on this letter, so
Yeah.
so I guess that one of the questions I have is, we haven't done this before. So it's their lobbyists that asked them to put forward the letter to the governor.
So, well, we've sent letters before. I think the idea here was to try to get it for the governor's consideration when the governor releases his capital budget, which will happen in the next week or so. I don't hold out much hope that it would be there, but I just think this was the process to start. And then we'd reuse this document in communications with legislators and committee chairs and things like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. Thank you. So
I think by approving the letter, you're approving the context, the verbiage in the letter. And then as time goes by, myself and my colleague, if you all approve of the letter, we would then, we'll change who it's sent to. But know that you're approving the body of it or the content of it, and then we'll use it for different people to send to down the line. Does that make sense?
Okay, thank you. I guess the only question I have is it just says throughout the pandemic, it became evident that the region lacks large community space to store and distribute resources to the public. We've been using the fairgrounds, so is that really true? Are we kind of stretching it? I guess that's the question I have, Jerry.
Yeah, it's true that we've got a lot of buildings out at the fairgrounds. When I read that, if there's any part of the letter I think that may be a little uncomfortable, that would be it. That isn't really the gist of this. This is economic development, raise sales tax, utilize the fairgrounds, hopefully in a more year-round fashion. It really doesn't have to do with COVID extra space.
Well, and I don't think there's any reason you can't edit things out and make the suggestion back, and I'll carry that back. I think it was probably just someone's attempt to draft it and, be current with the times is the way I describe it.
Okay.
But certainly, if you want to have Jared make an edit and send it to me, I'll get it back to my colleague. I don't think there'll be an issue changing.
Okay. I kind of understand what they're trying to do. They're trying to emphasize need, and I think if we had the extra space, we would definitely use it. But I think it's just trying to figure out how to word it appropriately.
They do a really good job about the local sales or retail sector in the letter. That's really the spearhead of this, is the economic development part. So,
if you want to take an attempt to clean that language up, I'll get it back to her. I don't see it being a problem.
So I wonder if we just say, instead of lacks large space, that, we could enhance and use more space, because you can always use more space.
right.
So maybe it's that. So it puts it in more of a positive spin instead of a negative spin on the fairgrounds.
Sure. Jared, are you making that and send it to me?
I'm working on it.
Okay, perfect.
So
But
we have,
otherwise, are you all comfortable with your names on this letter?
so we have two actions to take. One is to approve the legislative agenda. So need a motion to do that. And then the second motion will be to approve the drafting and signing of a letter. And, we can do that without having the final draft done at this point. Certainly looking for action on the legislative agenda anyway.
Mr. Chair, move to approve the signing of our draft 2021 legislative agenda as presented today.
Second?
Okay, you got a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
I,
Aye.
Aye, let the record reflect the motion passed unanimously. Then, with
And
regard
Mr. Chair, move to approve and authorize the drafting and signing of the letter presented with the request for the $4 million in the capital budget at the Spokane County Fair and Expo Center with the corrections noted to be signed at other than an open public meeting by the majority of the board.
Second that?
motion and a second, any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
I,
Aye, let the record reflect pass unanimously. Then,
I would just request that we get that letter. If he's going to be, if you think the government's putting that out next week, his capital, we need to get this in as soon as possible.
Sure.
yeah, we should be able to get it out today.
It's heading to Mike right now. We just need
Okay.
to, Mike, we need to work with the Valley to get the appropriate letterhead taken care of.
Yeah, I'll close the loop with my colleague there.
Okay,
And-
it's coming your way.
Okay, great. And then commissioners, one last housekeeping issue. And so moving forward, I'll work with Jared and Gina to grab a couple dates, just open dates for you to invite the entire delegation to come and present the agenda. I think it's just easiest, let's just pick a couple, and if they can make it those days, they can make it. If they can't, they can't. I don't know of another way to do it to try to line up everybody's schedules. Additionally, the city of the Valley would like to do some briefings on that project. So keeping in mind too, that they're also briefing their full legislative agenda to their delegation, which there's some crossover, but in talking to my colleague, we go further than they do. They generally just focus on the 3rd and the 4th and the 6th. I don't think they go out to the 9th and 7th, or anyway, we go wider than they do. So there'll be some overlap. When they present their agenda, they'll talk about the fairgrounds. When we present ours, we'll talk about the fairgrounds. But they wanted to do a fairgrounds specific one as well. So they're going to pick a date or two and throw that out. And I said, okay, that's fine. Just let me know. And we'll hopefully we can get a participant, one of you three, or at least county staff to be a part of that meeting as well. Does that make sense? I just kind of had to make a judgment call because I didn't want to try to have to line something up with them. Trying to coordinate everybody's calendars.
Okay.
Okay. So you'll be hearing about that. I just didn't want you to hear about it and come out of left field and be like, what's Mike talking about? So there you go. Other than that, I'm all good for the day.
Very good. Thank you, Mike. Anything else for Mike? All right. Very good. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Thank you all. Have a nice day.
So the next item on our agenda is the budget at 10 o'clock and stuff. So if we've got miscellaneous matters and then also an executive session to hold. We could probably do the executive session now if you'd like, and get that out of the way before the 10 o'clock budget hearing. Would that be all right with you two?
fine with me.
Okay.
I'm gonna grab one.
Yeah. So you see if Mark can come over too.
Yeah, we'll take care of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're going to move into an executive session for the purposes of talking about pending or potential litigation. And my guess is by the time we get electronics and everything transferred over and stuff, it's probably going to be about 10:28, and we'll be in executive session until 10:50, or I'm sorry, not 9:28. We'll be in executive session until 9:55, and
Mark's on his way here.
present will be all three commissioners plus senior management, Dean and Mark McLean and Jim Amacio. And yeah, so go ahead and take us into executive session.